Hello, this is Chris Pratt from Eurogamer, and as I publish this video, Julian Gollop, the creator of the original XCOM, is launching his crowdfunding campaign for Phoenix Point, a game he describes as the spiritual successor to the series he created back in 1994. Now, he's looking to raise $500,000, which is not a small amount of money, and so I spoke to Gollop last week to get a sense of what they've got planned for the game should it reach that goal. With that in mind, here are 3 ways Phoenix Point promises to recapture the feeling of the original XCOM, and 4 ways it's going to try something brand new. Number 1, alright, let's start with the similarities, shall we? Once again, you'll start your campaign by selecting a location for your initial base on the geoscape, although this time you'll be limited to a number of safe spaces on the map, we're told. And this in turn will have some amount of impact on the kind of encounters you'll run into. One potentially cool thing, and we'll get onto the reasons why this happens later on in the video, is that you'll find different kind of alien units located in different parts of the world. Interesting. But yes, selecting a base location, that is back. Number 2, now if you played XCOM Apocalypse, you'll know that Gollop has experimented with the idea of different human factions before, and that's going to play a big role in Phoenix Point as well. These factions will be spread across the globe, controlling their own bases called havens and pursuing their own individual objectives. Now, it's worth maintaining good relationships with these different factions where possible, although some of them will be warring with each other, because you'll gain access to their tech that they've unlocked. And perhaps the coolest example of this that I've heard so far is the faction known as the Disciples of Anu, which are a religious cult that's been experimenting with alien mutation technology. If you gain their favour or defeat them militarily, you too can then start mutating your own soldiers to use on the battlefield, and that sounds really good. Well, not good, it's probably quite a bad idea and rather unethical, but as far as gameplay mechanics go, that sounds like a really nice one. Number 3, similar to the XCOM organisation, Phoenix Point is formed as part of a global initiative to defend Earth should things start getting, a bit apocalyptic. So thematically, this game seems quite similar to that original series, and it also means in terms of the gameplay that you start off in not the worst shape possible. You actually have a slight tech advantage over the alien forces, although this won't last forever, you wouldn't imagine, as their mutations start kicking in. Outside of the combat, you'll also see this advantage on the geoscape as well. The alien forces have control over the oceans. That bit belongs to them, but humanity has almost complete control over the skies. And so to begin with, in Phoenix Point, the big point of contention is who gets to control the land. So yes, thematically, Phoenix Point is very, very similar to XCOM. It's really an XCOM game in all but its name. Of course it is. It's Julian Gollop returning to the genre he created. However, he also insists that he has some new ideas up his sleeve as well. So let's talk about some of them. Right, number 1 in the list of things that makes this game different to the original XCOM, I want to start with the feature that could really make or break this game from what I've heard. It sounds incredibly ambitious and we're yet to see it in action, but here is the pitch. The aliens evolve as the game progresses, and this, as you'd imagine, is used to slowly ramp up the difficulty of each encounter that the player faces, but the way in which it works sounds brilliant. If an alien unit is getting consistently killed by the player's soldiers, it will trigger a mutation, and this mutation is somewhat random, drawing upon a big pool of potential designs, and then the aliens trial that unit in combat. If it does well, they start making more of it. If it doesn't, they mutate it once again. And so the game has this difficulty system that is based on evolution that is directly impacted by the player's actions. And another thing actually, Gollop has suggested the mutations are also based on whatever life forms the aliens have encountered so far, which means to begin with, most of their unit designs are based on sea creatures, but that changes as they gain a presence on the land itself, allowing the introduction of various land-based animal DNA, including human beings. Man, that sounds amazing, right? I really hope they can pull it off. Number 2, let's talk about how you control soldiers on the battlefield. Although the team did discuss the possibility time units will not be returning in Phoenix Point, and I imagine some of the old school players will be disappointed to hear that, but instead, controlling soldiers involves a mechanic that's partly inspired by the original XCOM, but also inspired by the more recent Firaxis reboot. So, each soldier will be given 2 actions per turn, although movement range will be determined by the weapon they currently have equipped. And interestingly, if you're moving a soldier and they spot a previously unseen enemy, it'll interrupt their movement, allowing the player to react as they choose. So it sort of plays like the reboot, says Gollop, but with a bit more flexibility. Number 3, Behemoths. These things sound really cool. If you've watched the crowdfunding trailer, you might have seen this bit here in which a giant alien behemoth is detected on the geoscape heading towards a temple belonging to one of the human factions. If the player doesn't do anything about that before it arrives in 5 hours' time, the location will be wiped out. But if they do want to do something about it, stopping a behemoth involves quite a process. You need to land a squad of your soldiers on its back, drill through its carapace, and insert poisonous canisters into its body. All the time you'll be fending off waves of alien minions as these drills do their work, and yeah, we did not do anything like that in the original XCOM, did we? Number 4, speaking of large-scale monsters, we'll be running into some slightly bigger creatures on a fairly regular basis in Phoenix Point. Although not on the scale of the behemoths we've just mentioned, I should clarify. These larger monsters, as you can see in this gameplay, will act like mini boss fights during the missions themselves, with different stages and behaviour patterns that trigger as their health is reduced. Verticality matters here, with certain body parts only accessible from the right vantage point. Whoa, look at that. He's a big one, isn't he? Also, so is he. And that's pretty much everything we know about Phoenix Point at this stage. It's from the man that made XCOM, and as a result, it's trying to recreate a lot of what we loved about those original titles. But importantly, this isn't just going to be a remake, thanks partly to the success that Firaxis have seen with their reboots. Gollop wants to ensure that his next game feels modern, but on top of that, he's also got a bunch of ideas we've just not seen before, neither from his games or those that he inspired. That evolution mechanic, man, if they get that right, this game could be quite special. So, here's hoping. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, let us know. And hey, if you are a fan of the original XCOM games, which I imagine quite a few of you are if you're watching this video, I reckon you're going to want to see this week's episode of Here's a Thing. It's going to be coming out on Thursday. It's about XCOM, basically, and there's a cool story that I want to share. So yeah, look out for that, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.